2.8 kilometers. On Google Earth, you could scroll past that distance in seconds. But for New Delhi, those 2.8 kilometers represent decades of accumulated tension. That is roughly the length of the tiny section of India's border with Myanmar, now drawing unusual attention, and a question that may be blocking something much larger. India and Myanmar are discussing unresolved sections of their 1,643-kilometer frontier, and reports have pointed to a possible territorial exchange around a section between border pillars 65 and 68 in Manipur. But there is an important distinction. India has confirmed that talks over unsettled sectors are taking place. It has not confirmed that a territorial swap has been finalized. So why would a border dispute covering such a small area suddenly matter? Because that tiny gap may be blocking something much bigger. India wants greater control over its eastern frontier. Myanmar is becoming increasingly important to India's strategy towards Southeast Asia. And between those two realities sits one uncomfortable question. Is India simply fixing a border problem, or quietly repositioning itself for a much larger geopolitical game?
India's border with Myanmar runs for 1,643 kilometers through 4 northeastern states: Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. And for New Delhi, this is not simply a line on a map. It is a security frontier. Myanmar's civil war has transformed the environment on the other side of that frontier. Armed groups, narcotics trafficking, weapons smuggling, and other forms of cross-border crime have become part of India's security calculations. And that creates a basic problem. If the boundary itself is not completely settled, controlling it becomes harder. India announced plans in 2024 to fence the entire 1,643-kilometer frontier and build a patrol track alongside it. But a physical fence cannot simply erase an unresolved boundary. First, the line has to be agreed. Then, it can be marked. Then, it can be controlled. That is why a few kilometers can become strategically important. The real prize may not be the land itself. It may be the ability to finally define, monitor, and secure the frontier around it. And that brings us to the people who live there.
In Manipur, a border is never just a border. Communities on both sides of the frontier have historical, ethnic, and family connections that existed long before the modern international boundary. That makes every kilometer politically sensitive. And the reported proposal has already triggered opposition from groups in Manipur who reject the idea of giving up any Indian territory. The area under discussion is associated with the Chandel district near Myanmar's Kabaw Valley, and that name carries history. The Kabaw Valley was transferred to Burma during the British colonial period in the 19th century. Since then, competing memories of territory, sovereignty, and Manipur's relationship with India have continued to influence political attitudes in the region. So Delhi faces two different problems at once. It wants to fix the line and build a secure frontier around it. But local groups may see any territorial adjustment as a dangerous precedent. And this is where the border story stops being purely about geography. Because India is not looking at Myanmar only through the lens of Manipur. It is looking east.
In June 2026, India's government described Myanmar as sitting at the intersection of 3 major Indian strategies: Neighborhood First, Act East, and Mahasagar. That language matters, because Myanmar is not simply India's eastern neighbor, it is India's physical gateway toward mainland Southeast Asia. Consider the infrastructure. The Caledon Multimodal Transit Transport Project is designed to connect India's eastern coast to its northeastern region through Myanmar, while the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway is intended to create an overland route from India through Myanmar toward Thailand. These are not just roads and ports, they are strategic alternatives. If India's northeast can connect more efficiently through Myanmar, New Delhi has another route toward Southeast Asia. But there is a catch. Both projects depend on stability inside Myanmar. And that means India has an economic reason, a security reason, and a geopolitical reason to keep its relationship with Myanmar functioning. The border, therefore, is only one piece of the puzzle. The bigger question is what India needs Myanmar to become.
This is where the 2.8 kilometers become much more interesting. India does not need to redraw its entire map to change its strategic position. It may only need to make one difficult border easier to manage. A settled frontier can support fencing, surveillance, and border management. A functioning relationship with Myanmar can protect connectivity projects, and stronger connectivity can give India greater access to Southeast Asian markets and strategic routes. But there is another player watching all of this: China. Myanmar is already deeply connected to China's economic and strategic interests, including infrastructure corridors linking China to the Indian Ocean. So India's calculation is bigger than the land being discussed in Manipur. It is about whether Myanmar remains a source of instability on India's eastern flank, or becomes a usable bridge towards Southeast Asia. And that is why the most important question may not be whether India gives up a small piece of territory. It may be what India gains by finally making the border predictable. Because in geopolitics, the smallest line on a map can sometimes determine the direction of an entire strategy. Global power is constantly shifting. Stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next analysis.